Cool. Give people a couple more minutes to come in. And love to, if if it's something that you are currently able to do, I would love folks to in the chat introduce yourself with your name, where you are, including the traditional denizens of the land that you're on, and we can share native land where you can find that if you are not already aware, as well as what you teach and just why you're interested in FieldKit. Thanks, Jer.
We'll just give everybody about another 2 minutes to get in here, and then we'll get started, and people can always catch up with us a little later.
Yeah. So just kind of to get some housekeeping stuff out there, we do have a pretty lovely group of folks, so lovely and large. So if possible, if you could either type questions you have in the chat, or we're going to do like a pretty hefty Q&A portion toward the end, so you can ask stuff then, raise hand, all the good meeting hygiene so that we don't descend into pure chaos. All right. Beautiful. All right. I think we can go ahead and start getting things moving. Oh, more people are filtering in. That's awesome. So I'll go ahead and share my screen.
Yeah, and let me just say while Lindsay is talking that if anybody has any issues or questions that you don't want to put into the public feed, or if you're having tech issues or whatever, you can ping any of us with FieldKit in our names, and we'll do our best to help you out.
Yep. All right, so can everybody see the lovely blue screen?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. Cool. So thank you everyone for coming. This is the first of these open houses that we are doing, so we are going to be learning as we go. But so far, all the conversations I've had with a lot of you have been really great. Super excited to have you here. And we really want this to be a dialogue versus, you know, us just talking at you for a while. So please, you know, we want to get your feedback on stuff. That's why it's an open house. And I don't know, Shah, you want to say before we get this party started?
Oh, I mean, we wish we had canapes, but
Yeah.
we don't. So you'll have to provide your own canapes for now. But we promise when we see you in person that we will provide them.
Have some appropriate fresh baked cookies in the oven to entice. Sounds good. Awesome. All right. So for those of you who don't already know who we are, FieldKit is really
Lindsay, your audio cut out for me. Did it cut out for others too? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm silent. No, it's okay.
It did for me too.
going without headset.
Yay, loud and clear.
There we go. Thank you.
On its last legs, I think. Okay, thank you for letting me know that. So, as I was saying, FieldKit is really about making an accessible, open source, high quality environmental sensing tool that can be used by everyone, not just field scientists, not just organizations with, you know, large endowments, but really for everybody. What we have built is a software and hardware platform, and we're going to go through kind of the different pieces of that. Shah will do a demo, and then we will chat about stuff. FieldKit is a project of Conservify. So those of you who have spoken to, maybe saw that in my email signature. We are conservation focused, not for profit, and yeah, this is our baby. So the team that's going to be talking to you today, we have Shah and Jer, who are co-founders, and then myself, community manager here. But we have a few of our other team members paying attention, listening in, and here to hear your feedback. So Shah and Jer, I don't know if you want to share anything about your backgrounds while we have a second.
Yeah, I would just say real quickly, I think I know a few people on the call from National Geographic. Shah and I met as emerging explorers at National Geographic, and this project really came out of that relationship. I'm an artist and an educator and a writer, and my entire life is focused on how we can make data more accessible and how we can make it something that connects to our lives in a way that isn't irritating / painful.
Yeah, and I'll just I'll add on that. I know many of you. I'm a conservation technologist. I started Conservify, and Jer and I kind of founded this FieldKit idea together to try and make environmental sensing easy for everyone. You know, scientists in other parts of the country, educators such as everybody who's on this call, and just anybody who wants to be able to do these sorts of things. And I think we've done a pretty good job at it. And I'm really eager to hear what some of you have to say. One thing I'll say just to start is, like, you know, we're really open, and kind of all the work, the technology we develop is open source. And so if there's ever anything that you think we should be doing better, or something you'd rather have, like literally everyone, the whole FieldKit team on the call today is just all ears. And we really appreciate the input that you have and the expertise that you have, and we want to build something that makes you teaching our next generation much easier and more effective and more engaged. So thank you.
Yeah, and I promise I'll be quiet after this, but there's a reason why we're doing teacher open house first, and that's because Shah and I and the rest of the team have always had teachers in the front of our mind when we've been building this project. And so I hope you see some of that shine through. But yeah, I want to say that you all are really, really important to what we're doing now and what we have been doing for the last, 8 years now.
And then myself as the community manager, am just here to really facilitate relationships, help with conversations, ensure everybody has the best possible experience they can with FieldKit, and so that, you know, really smart, interesting person over here and really smart, interesting person over there can talk to one another and share ideas, and ultimately we're all, you know, better and happier through collaboration. So going through just the basics of FieldKit, FieldKit lets everyone everywhere monitor the world around them with low-cost, reliable sensors and easy-to-use tools for storing, sharing, and telling stories with data. Our sensors are designed to be accurate, durable, and extensible. Our mobile app makes configuration, testing, and deployment easy for amateurs and professionals alike. Our low per unit cost makes deploying networks of several dozens, even hundreds of sensors possible, no matter how small the budget. Our platform securely stores and manages data and lets you share and tell stories with it. And really, FieldKit is for everyone. We're building this because we believe everyone should be able to understand and advocate for the world that they live in. It's a tool for field scientists, environmental advocates, naturalists, students, teachers, and for you. And just to get a sense for kind of the landscape that we're working in, there's a lot of custom-built one-off scientific equipment that is not really accessible to a lot of people, but is very reliable. And then people building all sorts of different homebrew open source products. We're trying to hit the sweet spot in here, providing regular folks with access to research-grade environmental sensors, and to make this kind of data access and management and sharing more accessible to everyone, so that we can all ultimately improve the environment that we live in. So we have really lots of groups in this everyone. So that's field scientists, that's conservationists, citizen scientists, educators, people working in environmental justice, makers and hardware folks, as well as you know, working with indigenous activists, people working to better their communities, and also just folks who are really interested in understanding the world around them. The ecosystem in which we're working is, we have kind of three parts. So there is the FieldKit station hardware, which actually goes out into the field, pulls in the data utilizing sensors, and then an app that you can use to talk to the station, pull the data off of it in a way that is, you know, easy for just about anyone. And then the fieldkit.org site, where you can then go and explore your data, share it, do things with it, and ultimately, you know, turn these numbers into something that tells a story. So in terms of the hardware, Shah, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about this.
Yeah, I can talk through this a little bit. You know, for maybe some of you that really geek out about hardware, I won't get too deep into this, but we're happy to talk with any of you. As I said before, this is fully open source. So, you know, we built it in kind of the same vein that things like Arduinos and Raspberry Pis are built on. It's used with like the same sort of basic components, but we pick things specifically to make sure that they're very good for science. And I'll walk through it a little bit in the demo, but the couple things that I do want to just kind of leave with you about the hardware is, one, it's open source, as I said. Two, which the open source thing is important because that means people are going to be building into the FieldKit ecosystem that are not us. And so those could be some of your students, they could be other kind of interesting folks, and you can use any of the stuff that other people create as easily as you could use the stuff that we create. We're working very hard to be able to support that.
Two, it's very modular. So when I say modular, it means, right now today, if you want to have a weather station that's connected to, a pH sensor, that is a very hard thing to do. Technically, it's really difficult. Even if you use like the most expensive equipment, really cutting edge stuff, FieldKit makes that as easy as plugging in a different module. Like you literally just put it on the FieldKit and you could do that. And so we wanted people to be able to explore interesting and new questions in ways that weren't able to be explored before. And so that's kind of how we've built that. And then everything with the hardware is also going to be documented so that if there is interest in building on it and hacking it and doing all sorts of stuff, that stuff's easy to do.
Thank you, Sha. And the app is currently available in the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. It is really a tool for interfacing with the station with some native data visualization components and other pieces of it, so that it's not just a sort of a communication and transit system. It's also a tool for actually doing station calibration, updating the firmware as needed. It gives you a lot of the tools for maintaining your station, again, in that really easy to use, accessible way.
Yeah, I'll just add one more thing is, that we built this app because we want people who don't know the technology to be able to basically take a FieldKit out of the box and, within 20 minutes have that thing out there monitoring the environment, collecting data, and then be able to kind of interface it without needing to know any code and stuff like that. And so that's one of the main focuses around the app is how do we interact with new modular hardware, but we do it without having to kind of rely on knowing strange languages and all sorts of stuff to interface with these sorts of things. You can still do that if you want. It's all open source, but we really wanted the app to be something that feels familiar to you as educators, your students, anybody who's really grown up in this smartphone world we live in nowadays.
Yeah, and I'd also like to flag something here, which I think is important to say, which is that we built our app to not have to be dependent on any cell phone cellular data usage. So you can interact with your station and do everything on Wi-Fi, and then when you get back to the school or the classroom where you have Wi-Fi access, you can upload that data. So we're certainly not asking anybody, whether it be a student or a teacher, to be investing their own bandwidth into this. And we know that sometimes that's a cost issue, but in other places, it's just also an infrastructure issue. It can be hard to get good, reliable signal. And so we're making sure that that is available no matter what.
Thank you for pointing that out, Jer and Sha. And then in terms of the web platform or the portal, there's the URL where it resides. It is a pretty comprehensive data visualization tool that also takes you through a lot of the steps that come as part of building out one of these projects and managing the deployment of your station out in the field.
Yeah.
I don't know what else you want to share, you guys.
Yeah, I would say like we're going to walk through it a little bit
Yeah.
and over the next couple of slides in the presentation. But one of the things we wanted to do with the app is, or with the website, is make it very easy to kind of explore your data. So, you could see on the screen, and I'll show you this in the demo, but if you were to start comparing sensors on the same station or across different stations, every time you manipulate that data visualization page, it creates its own unique URL. So, if you zoom in on certain charts here and you write a comment, that URL and that comment is tied to that very specific data view. So like, if you want all your students to look at the same data view at the same time, you just give them that link and everybody's looking at the exact same thing, which is it's nice to kind of hold that history through the exploration of data. And the last thing I'll add to it is one of the things we're trying to do with FieldKit is make it very easy to get the data into FieldKit, but also get the data out of FieldKit. So, we're building a lot of export functionality into this. So if you want to, export this to a CSV, you can, but then also things like, Jupyter notebooks or like all sorts of different tools. And if there's certain export tools that you work with as educators that you're all very excited about, please tell us that now so we can, and we'll build ways for FieldKit to interface with that.
Awesome. Thanks. And we're working on developing this collections concept where you can collate different data sets into a sort of a greater story to share, which I think Jared can speak about a little bit more. Additionally, things that we're working on adding into the platform is the ability to share data out via Twitter and also with a direct URL. Working on a localization project for all of our properties to make content accessible in Spanish, French, and Portuguese, with eventually, wanting to really have content for as many languages as possible. Because ultimately, again, we don't want this to just be limited to affluent folks in the West. I don't know, Jared, if you want to talk a little bit about the collections stuff you're working on.
Yeah, and I think is that the next slide?
I think this might be. Oh, there we go.
There
Okay.
you go. Yeah. So this is one thing that I was really excited to speak to you all about, which is this idea of collections. So one of the things that I think the platform does, which is really useful for teachers, is to do project and user management. So you can create a project and then add users to it. So that what that ends up being is kind of a group of people that are working on a project. But then what you can also do is you can curate your own kind of collections of FieldKit stations. So if I was interested, for example, in wetlands, I might want to curate a whole bunch of different stations that are water quality stations in wetlands around the world. Or if I was interested in, the San Francisco Bay Area, I could collect all of the FieldKit stations that were in the San Francisco Bay Area. And what that allows me to do is it allows me to look at all the stations at once and then do these kind of comparative things from one station to another. And as Shah was just talking about, to like comment on that particular thing. So it's like, hey, I noticed on December 15th, there was this big spike in temperature over here, but not in this one. Like, what do you think that was about? And people can have conversations around that data. And I was really glad to hear a few people mention the word storytelling, explaining on what they were trying to do. And I think, as Shah said, one of the things we allow to do is to get the data out in easy formats, which allows you to do crazy things like make music from it, or whatever you might want to do with it. But I want to also say that along with data storytelling, we have this kind of data story sharing, maybe, I don't know, these kind of data conversations that people can really socially connect to that data, and that to me I think is really exciting. And so, really tangible examples, a group of students working on a project can create their own collection. It could be their stations, but it could be other stations as well. But then also within the classroom, a teacher might want to divide students into collections for breakout discussions around the same data set. And then the students are able to kind of discuss with one another that data set before they come back to the main part of the classroom. And that brings us back to what we've been saying all along, which is just, we would love to hear from you about how you might imagine using these things in the classroom. And actually, I'll answer this question. I was going to answer this question a little later, but I saw it pop up in the feed about data ownership and privacy. So we have a really, really, really core property in FieldKit, which is that the people who produce the data own the data. So we will not use your data in any way without your permission. And then, as from a privacy perspective, both stations and projects, or all three, stations, projects, and collections, can be public or private. So all of these things are very, very easy for us to kind of decide who gets to and who doesn't get to see the data. We are also working on being able to do a halfway mark between those things, which isn't deployed yet. But so we have like, hey, yeah, it's okay to show all my data, and it's okay to show none of my data. But we also want to produce some middle ground where it's like, it's good to show my pH values, but please don't show my latitude, longitude. So these are things that we created a lot with classrooms in mind, because we know that teachers have a lot of concerns and requirements to be working around the privacy of their students.
Yeah, I think ultimately, we're looking at everything through this community mindset. Like, we want the collaboration to be fully consensual at every point along the journey, and have it be something that everybody's really, knows what they're part of and is excited to be a part of it. We are in the process continually of deploying more help documentation, developing different ways of accessing this kind of information. So on our site right now, we have a product guide that goes through myriad things, everything from like, here are all the different parts of the station, to here's the steps for deploying your setting up and deploying your station. Here's how you make sure that your station is not severely damaged by weather and wild animals. Troubleshooting through some basic stuff, and really anything that we've thought of so far around making sure that your experience with the station is good, and that you're able to do what you want to do with the data. We're also working on building out a field guide, so kind of best practices for actual field science for people who are not necessarily experts in that area. Working on building more materials for the kind of open source and DIY part of the project for folks who want to, build on the FieldKit concept and make their own kind of things. And then, of course, like building out more, graphical or tutorial videos, things to make this kind of information accessible to folks who don't necessarily want to read, a giant wall of text.
Yeah, and just to add on that a little bit is one of the things that we're trying to do with the documentation is really put a lot of this information out in the forefront, because it's really hard to find good, reliable information about environmental sensors and how to deal with them, how to protect them, how to calibrate them, and all that stuff. And so one of our, FieldKit is a nonprofit and it's an open source project. So one of our goals is to further the knowledge. That's like our main mission, is to further the knowledge of this stuff forward. And we're just doing that by building hardware, and so we're, we're really interested in capturing a lot of those lessons learned about, like, if you want to put FieldKit next to a river that floods, like, these are things you have to pay attention to. And, this is information you need to know about. And so, like, that's going to, I think, as that resource kind of grows, a lot of the team here has done a lot of that stuff in the field. So we have a ton of information in our brains we'd like to get out. And this is the venue that we're going to kind of put that in. And it's all going to be open. So anybody who wants to kind of, take it and do what they want with it, they can do that.
And also, a lot of what we do, in terms of learning and building materials is community-based and collaborative. This is a lot of, what I've been working on is, we recognize, we have our expertise in our various areas, but, I could try putting together a lesson plan around, a weather station. Probably wouldn't be that exceptional. And so, we really want to have a core part of the, the FieldKit experience, the mission, all those things, be this community aspect where anyone can go in and talk to other people who are either using the tech or who are knowledgeable in this area, who are just interested, and kind of pick each other's brains. I've worked in online community for 10 years in these sort of communities of practice, helping people to connect with other folks with different areas of experience, and in order to be able to work through challenges and solve problems and come up with sort of brilliant new ideas. So we've built a community forum. It's still kind of in beta mode, but we are growing it, and it's accessible to anyone. If you go to this URL, you can sign up and access it. We have sort of a main community area for sharing sort of general ideas, as well as a more sort of support-focused FieldKit help area, and a place for our FieldKit 50 winners, which we'll go into. And we're really hoping that this will be a place where we can not only sort of support and grow our early adopters, but really start to build a body of knowledge that is greater than anything that any of us could come up with, you know, either within our team or any of the individuals in our community out on their own. So our FieldKit 50, and we have a few of our FieldKit 50 winners here tonight, which I'm super thrilled to have some of you here and to see your faces after talking to you back and forth so much over the past few months. So back in, for Earth Day 2020, which feels like a century ago, we gave away 50 field kits to folks from, I think, 24 different countries around the world. People sort of wrote in with their project ideas, and we picked 50 of them to get a station. So those are in the process of being shipped out now. I don't know if y'all are aware, but there's been a pandemic going on, which has made some of the supply chain stuff a little bit frustrating. So we're just getting this stuff out there now, but I know that we have a few folks here who have field kits in their possession at this very moment. And it's really been wonderful for all of us and inspiring to know that all of you are out there, you know, that these are the people that we're building stuff for. And I know everyone on the team kind of goes back and reads through who are the folks that are going to be using this tech, and just your source of inspiration for us. So these are some of our early adopters. Like I said, some of you are here with us tonight. Really folks spanning, you know, we have educators, we have field scientists, we have activists, we have people working in, you know, agriculture, really all the use cases we have for FieldKit. We have people out there getting ready to go out into the world with it. So something that we've been working on is around these kind of use cases is developing working groups for not only kind of getting a sense for how to frame out FieldKit access for certain types of people, but also, you know, ensure that we're providing the right kinds of materials and are, you know, doing things in ways that are going to work for the different types of folks that we're sharing FieldKit with. So Jared and I have been working with library administrators and staff from 4 libraries in 3 countries, with everyone from a large metropolitan library system to someone who works at a library that is literally just one library on an island, to develop a sort of pilot program for having field kits in libraries that are accessible to the people in that community, and to create, you know, a different way for people in the community to experience this kind of technology and do things with it. So we are looking to have the first pilot kind of start in North Vancouver in spring of this year. But obviously, if you know, if y'all know some librarians who'd be interested in this sort of thing, send them our way.
Yeah, that was we put the slide in here because we know that often teachers and librarians can be peas in a pod. So if you know librarians that are interested in this, we're super excited about the idea the field kits could be loaned out specifically from community libraries, because you know, our goal, you'll hear it again and again, is to make this stuff available to people, no matter what their budget, no matter what their technical ability is. So we'd love to hear from you if you have connections for people in libraries.
And so speaking of working groups, we're also looking at collaborating with educators of all sorts of different stripes and getting a sense for what your needs are, what things, you know, can we do to make this easier for you to use, more accessible, better, every single possible good adjective we could come up with here. And so this is kind of the first step, having this open house. And we already obviously know some of you who already are some of our early adopters, but we'd love to have as many of you as are interested to be involved in helping us shape the future of FieldKit for educators, so that it's something that is not just like a great idea, but that is actually, useful and usable. And now we're at the demo portion. So I will stop with the slide share.
Yes, now it's now it's me.
Now it's the shot show.
Yeah. Hey everyone. Okay, so I'm going to kind of show you FieldKit and show you how we work with the whole thing. First, I'll take you on a little walkthrough of the hardware itself, and then we'll go on and show you the app and the website. So let's see if we go to, you guys can see the hardware. Great. Hey, Lindsay, I think if you mute it, it might go off of you, because for me, it's still showing you as the main screen.
You did mute.
Okay. Hello? Did it switch to me now? I can't tell. Okay, so here's the hardware, everyone. So I'll just press a button so you can see it turn it on. Basically, to explain to you what it all is, we built this case. The case is weather sealed. In it, we have what we call the FieldKit core, this top part. This is basically the brains of the FieldKit. And so in here, from a technical standpoint, if you want to know what's in here, it's got like a microcontroller and a bunch of memory, a real-time clock so it knows what time it is. And then these two boards are sandwiched on top of each other. On the top board, you have the microcontroller, you have the screen, you have an SD card slot, which you can kind of see right here at the top, which saves the data on here as a backup on an SD card. It's got a USB plug, buttons to interact with the screen. The board that you see underneath it has things like Wi-Fi, GPS. It's got all the power charging stuff. So, here it's plugged into a battery here, but you can also plug any 12-volt solar panel into this point and it would work. And there's also a button. There's a button on the side where you can see the back of it here. The whole point of the button is I press it and it turns on the Wi-Fi of the device. You see it says Wi-Fi. So the screen just kind of allows you to interact with the FieldKit, and there's a bunch of stuff you can do on that. You can look at readings and all sorts of stuff on it. And then each one of these are different places where you can plug in a sensor module. So the sensor module I have plugged in here right now is a water temperature sensor module. And when it's taking a reading and when it's active, you see it lights up this little logo here, which you can kind of see better in person. On this webcam, it doesn't work so well. And then we've done a couple different things. One is we added these little mounting plates mounting points to the lid, so you can mount different things on here if you want. So for this example, we have a little notepad if you want to take notes, and we put a little engraved thing here. But you could also put like a battery holder if you want to have a bigger capacity battery, or all different sort of stuff on it. And then this bottom part, the cable plate, this allows you to change the different types of exits you have from cables and stuff. So we have like a laser cut acrylic plate or you can, use whatever you want your own to kind of change and configure this as much as you want. So as I said before, it's all very modular, and we hope to kind of change things or people to be able to change things and do whatever they want to do with it. So I can show you, I have to.
And actually that view with the pan right beside it gives you a good idea of how big it is.
Right. Yeah. We've also done things like we put a little lock, so that if you want to lock the FieldKit to keep people from messing with it, you can do that as well. And then that's what the front looks like if you haven't seen that before. And then on the bottom of the FieldKit are mounting points that allow you to kind of mount it using all sorts of different sort of things like U-bolts and different stuff like that. So it's very easy to kind of put that up and get that working. Now, let me switch to the next screen. This shows you the FieldKit app. So this is actually live streaming from my phone. So you can see I'm moving it around. So with the FieldKit app, basically what you end up doing with the hardware is you make sure that the Wi-Fi is on with the hardware, And then using your phone's Wi-Fi, you can connect to the station itself. So let's see, I'm going to connect to this station. It's called Rural Impala. And I'll actually show you something in a second here with the app. Is what we do with the names of the FieldKit is that they generate their own names. So, you know, like you see all these different ones, Joyful Moth, Vibrant Gecko, and all this sort of stuff. And so those allow you to kind of name it. You could also change the names for the stations themselves if you want to do that. So the main 3 different areas we have within the FieldKit app is this station page that we call it right here. We have a data page that allows you to like look at the stations that you've connected to before. And then we have settings. You could change settings and permissions. If you don't want, like, say you don't want FieldKit to upload on cellular data, you can change that sort of stuff. You can change the permissions and sign into different accounts. So I have multiple accounts on here. But let's see. So when you connect to a station, you see it changes color right here. So Rural Impalas, we're connected to it here. And then it's going to show you what the kind of the temperature reading is and all that sort of stuff. When you go to the data page, you can see it's taken 12 readings so far, and you just hit this little download thing, and it starts downloading the data onto the app itself. One cool thing that we've done is we've added this deployment process. So one of the things that we wanted to do with FieldKit was make it very easy. You know, a lot of times the criticisms around community gathered environmental data is from scientists is that you guys don't have the right metadata associated with what you're collecting. So we don't know if we could trust the sensor data that you're giving us. And what we've done with FieldKit is we've built this process into this deployment process that helps you gather that right sort of kind of metadata so that when you actually do deploy these things, all that's attached to all the data. So I could show you what different things you can do. So you can name your deployment. So we'll call it test deploy. Let's just call it test deploy 2 teachers. There's from a data capture standpoint, you can do different things. You can do simple or you can do complex. So simple really allows you to just take a reading every minute, 5 minutes, every hour, something like that. Complex allows you to kind of add different times. So if you want to do a bunch of readings at sunrise and sunset, you can set those sort of things. Or, but for sake of this, let's just do simple. You hit continue, and there's these field notes that allow you to kind of fill in the different field notes. I've pre-filled them in, but you can just click on one of these things and add some text and save it. You can also save audio notes. So if you're out in the field and you don't really want to spend a lot of time writing, you can just record something and say, we're by the river and doing this, and it'll allow you to do that. And then you could take a picture of the FieldKit deployment. Let me see if this works. Last time I did this on, oh yeah, there you go. Take a picture of the FieldKit deployment, use that photo, and that becomes part of your deployment photos. And then so, oh, yep, see it. Sorry. Once you're in there and you're doing that, you hit deploy, and after hitting deploy, it starts taking readings. Now, the difference between the difference between being deployed and undeployed is just a flag in the data. So the data itself is still being collected as your as your FieldKit is deployed. But like all the different metadata that you've attached to it and the order and everything associated with it, that doesn't happen until after you hit deploy and you actually do that. And then once you hit deploy, then it starts recording it, and you can download that data and upload it to the website. I think that's everything. From the app, you can also do things like firmware updates on it and all sorts of different stuff. There's a lot of flexibility. You can add different accounts and lots of different things. So let's see. The last bit of it that I'll show you is the website. So with the website, this is generally what the logged in homepage looks like. So you'll see on the left-hand side, you'll see projects and your different stations. And then there'll be community projects underneath as well, and collections, but we haven't actually implemented that in this just yet. So if we go to FieldKit demonstration, this is what it ends up looking like. So you could see, we have a map of the deployments. We have a lot of the project details. You can have different team members that are tied to these different things, and give them different roles. But if we were to go in and click on the station, one of the things I do want to point out here, which is kind of cool, is we have an integration with Native Lands, the Native Lands API. So wherever these projects are, it pulls the names of the indigenous people that were at those locations before and currently. And if you hit explore data, then it ends up pulling up your data for your station. So let's say I just want to look at this data. This is me very zoomed in to look at these different data points. This is rural Impala looking at water temperature, and you can compare that by adding a different chart, and that chart can be a different zoomed in points or like data set or whatever it is that you end up wanting to do. And as I said before, that data view gets saved as its own unique URL. So if you're going to come down here and you type, this is cool as this comment, then that comment is tied to this very specific data view. So just to demonstrate that, let me close out this other chart and let me zoom this one back out. Now, if I were to click view data on this comment, it takes us right back to the exact same data view that we were at before. So it's a kind of cool thing. We're also adding different sorts of views, so not necessarily just a time series, but range, histogram, a map of the data. This isn't going to be very interesting because this one's not moving, but we have some that will be moving in the future, and we're testing a bunch that are moving at that time. And if you were to comment on different data views after somebody's already commented on it, you can create this kind of threaded view that you see here below. So here's a different data view that was being commented on. We've also built in, this is where the export functionality is going to come. Right now, we just have CSV and JSON lines, but it's something that we're working on all the time to continue to expand. Is there anything else from the demo that I'm missing, FieldKit team?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I did notice we had a couple questions around kind of how the probes interface with the station and what that looks like.
Yeah, so I mean, I could talk to that. This one, let me go back to the hardware view. This one that we have right here, it uses like an SMA, which is actually pretty like easy to use and robust. If you could see what this looks like, it's kind of, you might have seen it on like audio equipment and things like that. So, but it depends. Like our weather station actually uses RJ11, which are similar to Ethernet cables to plug in and out. And then, some, like, you could basically have it connect in any sort of way that you'd like to do. It really depends on the sensor type and what you're working on.
Yeah, and I maybe would add to that one of the things I think is the most amazing about this whole thing is it's worth stressing the modularity part. So we're actually just starting to work with some people over here in New York who set up mesh networks in the city, and they're going to stand up some weather stations. But hopefully within the coming months, we're going to have an air quality module. And literally what they need to do to make their weather stations, now weather and air quality stations, open the door of the box, plug the air quality module in, and close the box. And now you have an air quality and weather station. So I was answering this question in chat for somebody. This is part of the reason why it's so exciting to me for the classroom, right? You have this box, which is the brains of the operation, but we have this Lego kit of sensors. And so, for example, you might want to be looking at so later we're hoping also to develop some agricultural sensors. So things like soil humidity. You might want to put a soil humidity sensor in a pot, but also have a rainwater catcher, and then maybe an air quality sensor. And what's the bottom line to me of why this is amazing is that there's just nothing you can buy that will do that right now. In that you could do that if you were very good at soldering things together, but but this is going to, and as the ecosystem builds, it's going to get like more and more and more. And it's worth saying as well that you can have more than one of the same thing in a box. So if you were, for example, we've been working on a project in cenotes, which are flooded caves. And so you could have 4 temperature sensors at different depths, and that will work as well. So I love the idea of students, especially in older grades, being able to like decide for themselves what they want to be measuring, and to like really be building these things. And that actually brings me back to what Shah just showed, which is this discussion / comparison view of data. And the way that I started to think of it is like each one of those little comments, it's like it's like comment as hypothesis, right? It's like somebody can select a view of the data and be like, hey, I think that what's happening here is that as the sun comes out, the temperature goes up and the humidity goes down. And someone could say, oh, that's a good idea. Let's go look at all the other sunrises and go see how this happens. And so that to me is really exciting. And yeah, this kind of blows. One of the reasons we're so excited to work with you all is, you probably know this too, is if you give your students the tools to make something you don't expect, they will make that thing. and we want like that. That's exactly what we want, is for people to show us ways of using our tool that we don't expect.
Yeah, and just to add a little bit on what Jared's saying, like, we're excited about there being configurations that maybe a lot of people are using. So one thing that we always, if you go to the website, you see we have like FieldKit water, and that's pH, dissolved oxygen, conductivity, and temperature. But like, what if you were to be able to have like a FieldKit California, which is some fire detection sensor, seismic, and I don't know, something else, right? And so it's kind of cool to think about, like, there's these configurations that you can have because of the extreme modularity, which is something that no one else is really doing right now, that like maybe everybody's doing, right? Maybe there's like the same combination that students across the world are all using to monitor their environment. And then we could start to look at these things in a way that is just not possible today,
Lindsay, can we switch back to Lindsay, and then we can kind of walk through these last few, which are more on this lines of like, let's open our brains to some of the ways that this thing might work, and then we'd love to just open the floor for people to ask questions, make comments, share recipes, whatever we want to do with the time that we have remaining.
I was checking to see if we had any other very technical specific questions, but I think we got them all. So kudos to the team. So now actually we had Jared, the handful of slides you had kind of talking about the interfacing of stuff. I can go ahead and
yeah, if you can put those up, that would be great.
Yeah, sure thing. I will try.
So one of the things that's always that I've always been, what this comes from, by the way, is that I had I went to school in the 80s, and I had a guidance counselor named Mr. Jack, and I remember him sitting to me in his little office in the half an hour he had after school every day before his scheduled tea time at the golf course, and telling me that I really had to decide, I had to do science or I had to do art, and I couldn't do both. And so everything in the rest of my career has been like really just in spite of Mr. Jack and trying to prove him wrong. But we're trying to position FieldKit as something that can be used in classrooms across disciplines, and more than that, to be a kind of bridge between disciplines. And so these are some of the ways you could imagine FieldKit, like what the ways that FieldKit could interact. But and we think of this in a project view, and you can go to the next slide, is we hope that what FieldKit allows is these really tangible branches between things. So we all know probably that mathematics and climate change are very closely related, but FieldKit can be a way to be teaching about climate in math class, or to be teaching about math in a class that's more focused on climate change. So likewise, and if you go to the next slide, we can imagine these kind of different combinations. So So a class that is focused on ecology might also be able to build in elements of citizen science and also be able to talk about structural inequalities, things like environmental racism and so on and so on. And I just sort of briefly mapped out a project that we're working on right now, which is this Yucatan project. And it's like, okay, these are actually a lot of things that are being brought together in play with FieldKit. And, you know, if I had one dream for how this project sort of helps impacting educators, that would kind of be it, as a thing that does allow us to cross these kinds of bridges. And we talked before about the educators group, focus group that we're going to be building, and we'll send you out a little form if you want to get involved in that. And this is the kind of stuff that really excites me. I hope it excites you to understand how we can use FieldKit as a kind of nexus for different disciplines to talk to each other and to build thinking that crosses. I'm going to say it. Left brain, right brain. We want to get across those two things using FieldKit.
Right.
Oh, you know what? I had a couple other things to say, and I'll say them now.
Oh.
And you know, we talk about the word community, but really, we make hardware, we make a software platform, but we also are determined to make a community. And that community, we talk about it as a community for environmental care. And FieldKit 50 is a really good example of that, is that we're sort of trying to foster that community. And I want to put that out to you as well, is even if you are in a classroom, which either now or later won't be able for whatever reason to get a FieldKit in your classroom, you can still use the FieldKit community in your classroom. You can use the data they're collecting, you can use their stories. So you know, I don't want us to think about this teacher integration all about being like, let's try to get some hardware in our classrooms. We would love to get some hardware in your classrooms, but there are lots of other ways that we can interact with you, with your fellow teachers, without having to have any kind of investment. And then speaking of investment, we've tried our best to keep our prices as low as we can. That said, we know the types of challenges that are being faced by teachers, by school boards. We know this is hard. And so two things, we'll work with you as hard as we can to be able to get that to be possible for you. And then again, we can also make FieldKit work for you, even if you don't have hardware. And then the last thing I'll say is that year to year, month by month, one of our huge goals is to get those prices to keep on going down. So we're moving manufacturing of probes in-house. We're going to move manufacturing of other things in-house. And as we do those things, like, our primary goal is to make this cheaper for you to get these things into your classrooms.
Yeah, the last thing I would add to that is, you know, I'm always working with foundations to figure out ways that we can do, get more of these things out. And so, in much like the same vein, like the FieldKit 50, like, we have plans to do big educator giveaways of FieldKits and like and different things such as that. But, like, you know, we're trying to work with our funders to make those sorts of things possible. So, you know, if you follow us on social media, you'll see when those opportunities come up.
All right. So now we are at the portion of the event that's really kind of open Q&A for all of you. Like we said, we've been grabbing you know, what we can in the chat. I did notice a couple folks asking about associating images with the station information. So there's actually the ability to associate pictures with a project within the platform, because that is useful information in there. Let's see.
Yeah, I would also add, I don't know if those images we're looking at you were thinking about things like camera traps and stuff, but there is, you know, we do have on our development pipeline a way to interface with cameras as another data source for FieldKit. That requires a lot more hardware changes, and so I won't tell you that it's something that's necessarily happening this year, but it's definitely something that's on our radar.
Yeah, and to add to that, it's you know, the way that the FieldKit, if we call this like version 1, is really defined around periodic measurement, like things that are being measured kind of once in a while. That while can be a very small amount of time, and whereas things like cameras and microphones are more continuous. But we are looking at ways to be able to periodically interface with those types of devices. So you might know AudioMoth, which is a sound recorder, and so we're ideating around an AudioMoth module, which would allow us to power your AudioMoth and also check in with it to see how many things it's recorded, and be able to kind of allow you to have an interface to that device.
All right.
Yeah, and feel free to if you have a question that you just want to ask,
Yeah.
you can
Raise
unmute
your
and jump
hand
in. I
or
think
just
we
holler it
seem
out.
like a civilized group.
Yeah, and we wanted what we really wanted to get out of this was to hear some crazy ideas from you all. So
Yeah, we have some some seed questions for the conversation that we can throw out there, but we'd love to answer yours before we start asking y'all things.
Don't be shy.
Jared mentioned in the chat, I realize this is in the pipeline, a marine kit. And that's super exciting for me. I do research on the coast. And so I'm curious if there's a point where there's a pressure sensor involved, if that could record at a really high frequency. I mean, 2 hertz is passable, but like 8 hertz would be great. And that in that, I know that battery constraints start to be a big player. So some kind of bursting mode, like records 6 hertz for 5 minutes every 30 minutes. That kind of flexibility would be amazing. So that's totally unsolicited ideas.
yeah, no, that's great feedback. So just to kind of give you a little bit of background on the FieldKit Marine stuff, we kicked off a project this year with the Smithsonian Tropical Research Institute in Panama to build a marine version of FieldKit. It's something that's going to probably be we're going to be working with them over the next couple of years on building that out. So it's, we'll have more available, but pressure is definitely an important part of that. It's going to be basically the same sort of architecture that we have now, but optimized to go, in the sort of vessels and environments that you would expect with marine instruments. So that's kind of the idea behind it.
And that also gets us back to the open community. Like, if any of you are interested in driving development of a certain type of sensor, we have if you go to our GitHub page, all of our software and all of our hardware designs are there, and it is a huge priority for us to support that kind of development. So we would love to work with anybody who has a specific task, and that's again the magic of this thing, is that if people can make modules that kind of satisfy individual tasks, then they get to cross with other people who are like, oh my God, now I get this and that together. Like that's exactly what we want to do. And while I said that we've been focused on a very specific measurement for V1, we definitely want to move past that in the future. We want to get the solidest foundation and then be able to build up from that.
Yeah, I'll just add a little bit onto that is, the FieldKit team has a very good relationship within like the hardware hacking kind of community. We won a big prize through the design of FieldKit. And one of the things that we hope is that people are going to be building on FieldKit, and maybe, through the community mechanism, there's ways that we can connect, an educator that has an idea, but maybe doesn't have the engineering expertise to like execute that idea with someone who's an engineer that would like to kind of give back and figure out ways and do a little bit of community work there to match up those sorts of people. That's something that I think would be super cool in the future. And as we move down, if you guys are interested in that sort of stuff, just let us know.
Could I ask a question about collaborators or partners? Has there been consideration given to connecting with different either state or county agencies that are in the business of collecting data, but also have educational goals or kind of mandates? I'm thinking of like California Native Plant Society or California Fish and Wildlife. I know they have educational components. The vector mosquito control districts in California, I know they have educational components. If there was a way to find their needs with data and to connect them to educators, because they already have networks typically that are out in schools, it would be interesting to see what kind of students and classes they could bring into those networks, and they've got the field scientists there that can help with that translation.
Yeah, we do talk to a lot of those organizations. Up to this point, that conversation has been more along the lines of the tools that they use and trying to get them to decide that, like, maybe it makes more sense that for them to have a bunch of $500 sensors as opposed to like one $20,000 sensor to do the sort of work that they do. So that's kind of the most of the conversations we've had about that. But the educational piece is a really good point, and might help push some of that stuff forward.
Ooh, when deploying, is the kit able to give an approximate battery life? So that is dependent upon what sensors you're using and your sampling interval.
Yeah.
I know weather is still a little hinky. If you're using all 4 water sensors and sampling at a 5-minute interval, we're seeing the battery lasting on a single charge for like 7 to 10 days, which is pretty great. And then if you go with a solar panel, in addition to that, then you're doubly golden.
The other thing I'll add too is we're right now evaluating different kind of off-the-shelf power bricks that you can buy and plug into the USB port. And yesterday, Jared and I were on a meeting, and I have this power brick that is about 4.5 times the capacity of the FieldKit battery and fits within the FieldKit enclosure. So it is something that you could probably put in there, and in a situation where you're measuring a full water kit every 5 minutes, that means you can have that thing out there for probably over a month and have it working without the need for solar. So we're always working on better ways to optimize battery and revisit that sort of stuff. That's the goal is to get this stuff to as low as possible.
I should also say the kit does tell you battery life. So you can check the battery status at any time. So battery level is a data point like every other sensor data point, and in fact you can chart it in our visualization graph so that you can see, which is also like super helpful when trying to determine solar power and stuff. You can go see how your battery is doing. And while we're on the topic of solar, so all of our kits by option do ship with a solar panel. So you can attach solar to any of the kits. If you don't want to buy our solar panel, it's a pretty standard solar panel. So you can get it. Shipping costs, especially if you're outside of the US, might be prohibitive for those solar panels. Whereas like wherever you are, I promise you can buy one of those solar panels, because Shah and I have bought them in very strange markets and very strange places, and you'll be able to get one. And so that's a possibility for you.
Yeah, I mean, Jared and I, right before the pandemic hit, we were in Cameroon, in Yaoundé, and we bought the exact kind of solar panels that would work well. So if you could probably find them anywhere in the world. And then just to kind of add on what Jared was saying too, it also tracks a bunch of solar power stuff. So you can also look at, if you want to look at solar power versus battery in that same sort of data visualization, you could do that sort of stuff as well.
Then just ask a question about connecting to iNaturalist. Not yet. So one of our priorities is to make this data outputable to whatever the citizen science platform is. So our immediate priority for that is to connect the weather data to Weather Underground and other, like NOAA actually has a portal to upload weather data. So that'll be our kind of first go at that. But as we add other sensors that will facilitate that, then yes, that's one of our has always been one of our priorities. So
Yeah.
actually, the genesis of FieldKit, when FieldKit started, we were doing things like animal observations as part of the thing, but we simplified and looked at the sensor stuff. But we would in the future love to understand how our platform grows to support that type of data. There's actually a lot of people we talked to have been like, hey, either like I have another device that I want to use with FieldKit, and I don't want to have to log out of FieldKit and log into this thing to be able to see them both together. And so we are also working actually right now on a pilot project with the city of New York about how to make it reasonably easy for people to take pre-built sensors and get that data into the FieldKit platform.
Yeah, I'll also add on just specifically on the iNaturalist part. Scott Laurie is like a friend of FieldKit, and we have talked a lot about having FieldKit data interact with iNaturalist. And we actually, Jacob, who's the lead engineer here on the FieldKit project, iNaturalist is its own open source project. So he spun up his own version of iNaturalist, and as a proof of concept showed that you can get FieldKit data into iNaturalist and just posting it into the comments of like observations in that area. So it's something that's completely technically feasible. I think we just have to sit down with the team, the iNaturalist team, understand where their priorities are and ways that we can kind of interface with that. But it's very much something that we have on mind because I think, iNaturalist observations would obviously be much better with that sort of environmental data behind it. And we would love to have some interface to that as well.
Jim is one of the lucky ones who has a FieldKit. He's one of our FieldKit 50 people. So we actually just published that user guide, which will get you, hopefully the product guide, which will get you started. Yeah, it's in exhausting detail, but also, as you're doing it, if there's questions you have, love to hear from them. And then also any documentation you can add about like things you learned and ways that you got it set up in your particular environment. Shah and I learned this right from the beginning. When you're putting things in the real world, every installation's different. And so we're really excited about getting that insight from people. We posted our community site earlier. It's community.fieldkit.org. That is a great place to, hopefully as more of the FieldKit 50 people come in, there'll be a place for people to exchange ideas and photographs. And again, you don't have to have hardware to get involved with our project. And so feel free to jump onto that site, create an account, and chat with us. And yeah, we're just thrilled to imagine what can happen. Yeah,
I would add too, like, if you go to fieldkit.org and you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you see licenses. All the information on the FieldKit website, including the product guide or anything else that we upload, is it's all Creative Commons, open. So like you can kind of do whatever you want with it. If you'd like to explore, modify it, or submit stuff to it, we're happy to have all of that. Yeah, we got our like first real pull request the other day for our GitHub repo. We were like very excited about that. And that's that's something also to, especially for those of you who might teach in higher grades, like our wiring diagrams are all open. Like there's some topics to think about, just like how does solar power work? Like it's actually a good way to teach that concept about what does it mean to have a 12-volt solar panel, and like how does that whole system work? So the thing itself is useful as a tool, but also as a model to think around. Somebody just asked where we're based. So technically in LA, although I think just like everybody else, the pandemic told us that that the fully distributed company is a total thing that can happen. So I'm in Brooklyn, and I think we have people on both coasts, Virginia, but we're based mainly out of Los Angeles. But I hope that if somebody were to ask us that next year or the year after, we could also add several other continents to that list. We're really interested in
building out our communities. So if you happen to live somewhere that, or know somebody who's keen on this, who lives somewhere outside of North America in particular, we're looking for people to be advocates for the project and to be kind of community hubs. And we always, one of Sean and I said this, that we would know that if the project failed, if the vast majority of our stations only existed in North America. So we want to get them out of North America and into the hands of people who really, I think, can put them to work.
I want to tease out, Jim asked about, getting support and help. And we have, that's one of the things that the online community is for, particularly if it's something that would be beneficial to other people, saying like, I can't figure out how this thing works. That's something, ask it openly in the community, and then somebody else will see it and benefit from it. And then somebody might say, oh, I figured, we figured out we did this thing this way and it was really great. If something is like really niche and hardware specific, or something where, you need to be sending like data back and forth, we do have the support ticketing system as well. And additionally, I'll say, in terms of feedback, I also, particularly for our documentation, if anything doesn't make sense as it is right now, like, let us know. We want all of the constructive criticism that that y'all can throw our way.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, our heads have been like buried in this stuff for the last 2 years. So like, there might be things that we don't see or ways that we can make this better. And we're, as I said in the beginning, like, all criticism is welcome, even if it's angry criticism.
No, we won't take we'll take bad criticism, but if you're angry, we'll tell you to email us back when you're not angry. Yeah, Daniel just asked about Indigenous communities, and speaking personally, but also as an organization, that is a very high priority for us, and we're extremely pleased that a number of our FieldKit 50 stations are already going out to Indigenous communities. This project that I briefly mentioned in the Yucatan Peninsula is focused on Mayan communities in the Yucatan. Work that we have been doing for years, are the kind of alpha testing of the project has been happening in the Amazon basin, also with Indigenous communities. And we kind of, we think that this fits really into philosophies of Indigenous data sovereignty and how this type of work can build capacity and power for communities. So yeah, if you have any way to connect us to people in communities, Indigenous communities in particular, who could use FieldKit, that's always, well, it is now and will always be a very high priority for us.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, we only have a few minutes left. If anybody has any last questions that they've been holding on to, please feel free to fire them out. Otherwise, I posted the email address, which is everyone@fieldkit.org, which is a great way to get a hold of us. I promise you that doesn't just go to like some trash basket. We will actually talk to you if you get a hold of us there. Likewise, Twitter, Instagram are all good places to get a hold of us. And then all of us, well, that's not true. Everyone but me, you can get a hold of with their first name at conservify.org, and me, you can get a hold of with Chair at fieldkit.org. So yeah, don't hesitate at all to get in touch with us. We're friendly, and we'd love to talk to you.
Yeah, and in general, I'd like to say, particularly we're really interested in hearing about, what would make FieldKit more accessible or more useful for you, and what barriers might be in your way from, getting one, because those are ultimately the things that will allow us to serve you and your communities and ultimately the entire world better.
I would just like to piggyback on that then and say that the questions I asked earlier about are students logging into an app, or are they having to give consent in order to sign on to anything, that whole consent issue is really big with COPA and FERPA, and Like Connecticut's really super stringent on student privacy. So if there's any way to get students logging into a platform that doesn't require consent, without any personal identifying information, that would be huge.
So I think we sort of are vaguely aware of that problem and have kind of kept it in mind as we've gone, but not with the specific. So you do not need your own email address and an account to use FieldKit. So
perfect.
Perfect. You could easily have a blanket classroom account or whatever that is. That's like not a challenge. But I think I already said that I would love to talk about that, and hopefully anybody else who maybe has some expertise or experience in that area, you could either email us, or if you're interested in joining the focus group, that could be a conversation for our focus group. But that's exactly the kind of thing that we're talking about, is that we have like all eagerness to get this to work with teachers, but we know that there are things that will stand in the way, and we would like to get those things paved over in that. But that is a solution that we're very mindful of. And again, just to come back to it, like collections, for example, like you can create a collection without really having to do anything. And so there are easy ways as a teacher to create a collection, send a link to people, and have them kind of interact with it without actually having to do any kind of account creation.
Yeah, we had a similar, some similar questions come up with some of the librarian conversations as well, so it's definitely top of mind. All right.
Well, by the chiming, the period, the tempo of the chimes, I think we're like approaching the end. So it was really excellent to meet everybody. I hope I get to talk to you all soon. In a post-COVID world, I hope we can visit your classrooms. In a pre-COVID world, if you want us to visit your classrooms, we will get on Zoom with you anytime in your classroom and talk to your students.
Yeah.
Be careful. We'll take you up on that offer. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll be sending out a link to this recording and another link to our intake form for, if you want to have more information about FieldKit or, specific questions. I'll be sending those out probably tomorrow in case you know anybody who might want to check those things out that's not you.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Why we do this.
Take care all. Thanks, Shaw. Sure, good to see you. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, likewise.